Hey you guys, and welcome back to our fourth and final video tutorial for the book cover redesign. So far, I have had a video on how to update the text in your book cover. We had a video on how to find and use correct images for our book cover. And then in our third video, the one we just finished up, I showed you 3 different options for a background. I've left 2 in on my screen because I really can't decide yet. In this video, I'm going to take some time to finalize my book cover. I'm going to show you a couple cool tricks that we can do with not only our word art, but also our images that we insert into our book covers. Let's start out with images because that's kind of my favorite. So some things we can do with our image are all available under Format Options. When you click on Format Options, it's going to slide off to the side a drop down per se, or a palette, maybe you might want to call it, for some things I could do. Let's just kind of check it out. This one says size and rotation. So within here I could change the size, but I did that using my bounding boxes. I could actually flip this, and maybe that's what I want to do because this is really the way my image is going in my sample or my inspiration book cover. But let's go back. I also left my word catching where it was because I kind of liked how the tail just naturally went between. So let's go back. I'm going to leave it because I'm really liking that. So that's what I have for options for size and rotation. Let's check out position. Not a lot. I'm using my arrow keys and my cursor to move around the position on the screen. Not a lot. But here we go. This is where we start getting to the fun stuff. One option you can play around with is the recolor of the image. So right now I'm sticking with the original image color that I found on the internet. But maybe I want to try out something different. I could go with the negative of it. That doesn't go with my book's theme, so I'm not going to do that. That is kind of like a brassy tone, but it ends up hiding in the background. This would really make it pop off the screen, but it doesn't make any sense with my book cover. No, I'm not liking really any of these. I might just have to go back to no color for my book cover, but feel free to play around with some of those color options that we have in your drop down. Another thing I could do is do some manual updates. Oftentimes I play around with what we call transparency, which allows me to make it more of a ghost image or what others call a watermark. If you are really observant, you might have noticed that in this book cover, I did create 2 really conspicuous little watermarks in the bottom corner. I might end up doing that again just to keep my books looking very thematic. We'll find out what I come up with in the end. So I'm not going to do any transparency though on my main image. The brightness I could maybe enhance a little bit to help it jump off the screen. I think I might actually leave that up a little bit, and I'm going to play around with the contrast as well because it's kind of hiding in my background. I know I don't want to turn my contrast down because then it gets really dark. But turning that contrast up makes it like it's on fire, which is the name of the book. So just playing around with that slider takes a little bit of time for it to catch up. So I'm going to leave it right there, just like that. Let's see, a drop shadow. I really, really like drop shadows. In my other book cover, I added a drop shadow to the title of the author, and I copied and pasted it in here. It's pretty subtle right now, but on my image, let's see what I can do for that drop shadow. Changing around with the color. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of change. Maybe it's that distance. No, it's just not working really good, so I'm going to deselect drop shadow. Sometimes that is a winner, and other images it just doesn't work so great. But here is the other really cool thing that I played around with in my previous book. I created a slight reflection of the image. So let's see here. I'm going to increase the distance. Oh wow, there it is. Super subtle right now. I don't know how big this size is. Oh, there it comes up. Now it's getting a little bit more visible. I hope you can see it over here by the word fire. And then play around with the transparency. If I go too transparent, it's not even going to show up. It's a far more detailed image than my previous image, so transparency on this one is a little bit harder to play around with. So I'm going to stick with that. And if I were to take in my background, I think it's going to show up even more. Yeah, on my plain red background, wow, that transparency just like pops off the screen. So I'm going to leave my book cover like this. I'm really liking just the plain background at this point. Another update I need to do is for sure changing the color of my book title. It's just kind of blah right now. So what other colors can I try? Let's do custom. I'm going to slide this off to the side if it'll let me. Nope. I'm so used to other programs that will let me do that. I'm wanting to see what yellow would look like. I definitely don't want the words to be transparent, but I could make them if I wanted to be. I could make them transparent, but I don't want them to be. Ooh. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to do the same color with this one, and here it is. It's showing up in my custom drop-down. And now I'm going to add a drop shadow. That's the tricky thing about yellow. Typically, if you choose yellow, add a drop-down. I just held down my shift button on my keyboard so I could select both words because I want to make some specific adjustments to the drop shadow, and I really want the two to match. So I'm going to play around with that drop shadow, increasing the distance, increasing some other features of it, changing the angle, just trying out some different angles. I definitely want it to go down. There we go. To be way more bold. It was getting too light over there with transparency, and that was a really good distance, so there we go. And then what I did with this one down here, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I did also add a reflection to that book title. This is probably going to end up far too busy if I add a transparency to my book title and to my image and to my author. So that looks way too busy. I'm going to just drop that and stick with my drop shadow. Click on the background. There we go. Now I'm really getting an idea of what my book cover is going to look like. The last thing, I liked this color originally that I added for the author's name, but now that I did all my other changes, that needs to change. So off to the side here where it says A, notice that when I was adjusting my word art, the color was on this side, but now the color is on this side. This set of words was actually not added using insert word art. This set of words was actually added via a text box, which is another way to play around with some word features. Just understand that if you're going to insert a text box right here, you won't be able to add an outline to the letters. That's why we would want to insert word art. So if you insert word art, you can add that outside border, but if you just use the text box, you can't add an outline to the outside of the letters. So both are really nice. They both have their advantages and their disadvantages though. Play around with it. Oh, it helps if I have all my letters selected if I'm going to try changing the font. It's so hard to see what it's going to look like when I'm having the letters selected. Yeah, I like how that turned out. I'm going to leave it just like that. In my opinion, it's probably a little bit too close to this one, but they are in the same trilogy. So flipping back and forth, they definitely have their own features between the two of them. Now that I go back and forth, I'm going to increase the size of this one just a bit. I made it too big. My tail isn't kind of catching that H anymore. I think it's just going to have to stay right like that. Sometimes when we're creating things, we just have to say, that's how it's going to be. And that's the case today.